Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today, talking about the 6th house. So as usual, if you have any planets in the 6th house or whatever sign is ruling your 6th house, leave them in the comments below so that you can learn a little bit from me and I can learn a little bit from you and everyone else can just learn a little bit from each other. And you know, it's a whole learning experience, and it's a learning experience and it's a learning opportunity based on actual personal experience. There's no other better way to learn, right? Okay, so in the 5th house, we were very happy with who we are, and we have expressed that to the world. We just kind of released all that, right? So now we get to the 6th house. Now I call this house, you know, the house of service. But before we get to that, this house is our awareness of our analytical abilities. So what we do, we express ourselves in the 5th house. It's done. We step back a little bit and we kind of are now assessing that and we want to be able to refine our expression. So let's say, for example, okay, let's say in the 5th house we express ourselves through sports and we take on this, you know, recreational activity, and in the 6th house now we're thinking about, okay, so what do we have to do to maintain the sport now? What kind of skills do I have to brush up on to be better? How do I have to take care of my body so that I can be better? And things like that. Let's say in the 5th house you were dating someone, right? It's a romantic house. Now in the 6th house, you're beginning to notice their flaws and you're beginning to analyze the person that you're with and kind of figuring out, you know, okay, do I really want to, you know, figure out the little details of who they really are. That's the 6th house, all right? Like the 1st house to the 5th house and even the 6th house, it's the house of the self. The 7th house and all the way to the 12th house, that's a house of other people, the public, you know, the world. So this is actually the last house of the self. You know, it's the gaining of the mastery of the self. So it's like the last things that we have to do to refine and to edit who we really are. It's like when you write a book, right? And you get to the 6th house. So in the 5th house, you're like, my ideas are out, I'm being creative and I'm writing this book. And then in the 6th house, it's like, okay, so now I actually have to edit the book before I can get it published. I have to actually come and check the spelling, edit the vocabulary. Did I choose the right vocabulary? Is the vocabulary accurate enough? Things like that. So you're editing, you're refining the work of yourself. Okay, so with this house, because it's an analytical house, it does provide analytical skills, but it also provides a sense of judgment and criticism in this house. Okay, so you know, in the 1st house we were self-aware, in the 2nd house we were aware of our senses, the 5 senses in our body. The 3rd house is awareness of the mind, the 4th house of our inner self, the soul. The 5th house, we expressed all of that. The 6th house, we want to kind of bring all the things of the first 4 houses together, and we want to be able to analyze the connection between them. So this is actually the house of the mind, body, and soul connection. You know, we want to be able to develop both of them. We want to be able to eat right, so that it can develop both our mind and our body. We want to be able to analyze things in the right way, develop our minds. Do you know what I mean? So, therefore, in order to do this, we start to create good habits for ourselves. So this is the house of our daily habits, the things that we do repetitively so that we can refine ourselves and make ourselves better. With this house, because we're so aware of the ability to be able to analyze and organize things, we then begin to think about how we can use ourselves, you know, to serve other people now. So we've refined ourselves. So let's serve other people a little bit, you know. So that's why this house becomes the house of service. It's usually a practical kind of service that we offer to people. And therefore this house is also the house of our pets, because our pets, the relationships that we have with our pets, we actually have to serve them and they have to serve us in return. We have to feed them, we have to clean for them and all that stuff, and they are our company. They serve us by being there for us, keeping us company, bringing a sense of, you know, adoration and excitement into our lives. And therefore, this house is also the house of our work, our working environment, because through work, we can serve other people. So it's the kind of work that we do daily, every single day, you know. That's the sixth house kind of work. It's not necessarily the kind of work that's gonna bring us our resources like the second house, or it's not that we're concerned about our reputation and our place in the world like the 10th house, but it's the process, the productivity that we partake when we're doing work. The sign that rules the sixth house, or planets that you have in there, is going to show you how you're like at work, the archetypes that you take on when you're in a working environment, you know, when you're interacting with your colleagues even. This is the house of colleagues as well. So how do you interact with those people? All right, so to quickly summarize, the sixth house is the awareness of our analytical skills and our organizational skills and what we can do with that. So we use that to examine ourselves, to examine our mind and our body and our soul, and be able to make that mind-body-soul connection and kind of get ready before, you know, we have to go into the seventh house. You know, we want to be the best version that we can be of ourselves. It's kind of a house of perfectionism as well, you know, getting ready to go into the seventh house and meeting other people and going on the world. And in order to refine ourselves and make all those body-soul connections, body-soul-mind connections, we have to start by engaging in healthy daily habits. So it's our routines, the healthy routines that we have for ourselves. And we become aware of the ability for us to be able to serve other people. And we do this through work, through pets, and things like that. Service is also a way that we can strengthen our refinement of ourselves. Being a better version of ourselves means that we're also able to serve other people. All right, guys. So my sixth house is ruled by the sign of Scorpio, and there are no planets in there. There's not even an asteroid. I'm a very not sixth housey kind of person. But Scorpio there makes this a pretty heavy house. You know, the sixth house is ruled by Virgo, and Virgo is already the sign of analyzing and judging and criticizing, and just doing all the little details, and it's also the sign of nervousness and a bit of anxiety. And Scorpio is like this obsessive energy. It's really heavy and it's extreme. So it's kind of two extreme placements. And the first thing that I can tell you right off the bat is that I do not like to share my daily life with other people, because Scorpio is such a private sign, right? So you know how like there are some bloggers and vloggers out there who like to make videos about like my morning routine, or like what I do in a day, or what I eat in a day. I don't like that, because I don't want you to know what I do on a daily basis, every hour of my day. That's private. Even like house tours and room tours and things, no. Oh, guys, because Scorpio is the sign of death, right, and regeneration, and sixth house is the house of pets. I'm gonna tell you a short story of my experience with pets. So I had a pet dog. Okay, his name was Sinbad, and we had him for just about a year, and then he was bitten by a snake and he died. Okay, now this is actually a pattern. After that, this is when I was younger, you know, when I was back in high school. After that, I wanted to raise turtles, right? So I bought 4 Japanese turtles, and they started dying one by one every day for a couple of weeks, and they all died. Then I thought, okay, I would have fishes. So I bought some fishes. Started raising them, and they all died one by one. And then I thought, oh, you know, maybe I'll have a hamster. So I bought a hamster to raise, and his name was Pui Pui, which means fluffy, and he was really cute. But one day we left the cage open accidentally, and he went out of the cage and was eaten by a snake. And then I used to date this guy, okay, this Libra guy, and we thought we would have pets together. But you know, I didn't know about astrology at that time, and I didn't know that, you know, my pets kept dying because of this Scorpio and the sixth house thing. I said, yeah, let's have a sugar glider together. So we bought a sugar glider together. We started raising him for 2 months, and he started to get weaker and died. And so I was like, I was really upset. We were going through such a rough period, and he wanted to have another sugar glider to replace that one. So I'm like, okay, do it. You have a sugar glider. You raise it by yourself. I'm not involved in the process of raising this one. And he did. He raised it by himself. Great job. And it survived. When I was out of the picture, the sugar glider survived. And this was way back in university, before I even knew astrology, right? So anyways, just this pattern of dying pets. But I do have a pet right now, a pet dog. His name is Kung Fu, and we've had him for like over 10 years. Yes, so he survived. I don't know, I think maybe there were some transits going on in my 6th house at that time as well, so it could have been a Pluto transit. Yeah, I think it was Pluto transiting my 6th house, because I have Pluto transiting my 7th house now, so it must have been transiting my 6th house during those times. That's why my pets were dying, but just Scorpio being there, it really got me thinking about, you know, the role of animals and pets in our lives. I sometimes feel that, you know, the birth of cats and dogs and these animals are artificial birth. And, you know, this is totally just my perspective. If you have a different perspective, please leave them in the comments below, you know, tell me what you think. But, you know, we breed these animals to come be born in this earth, but they have animal instincts, you know, they want to be in the wild, they want to run around, they want to hunt for food and have their own families and things, but we put them in our houses and we put a leash on them and we don't allow them to do what they want to do. We only allow them to do things that we allow them to do, but animals are meant to be wild, you know, and I've come to this realization, you know, probably as a lesson from wanting to have pets and then having them die, that we want to be free, right? We want to be able to travel where we want, and human beings do. So do animals, so do pets, you know? So if I were to have a dog or a cat or another pet, any animal in the future, I don't think I would want to do that, you know? That's just my own belief. The conclusion that I've come up with is that I don't think I'd ever want to have a pet. I maybe just prefer to go see animals in the wild, things like that. Okay, so now I want to tell you a little bit about my working environment life. So, you know, I have a Gemini rising, okay, and I'm a Taurus, so I'm actually quite a friendly person and whatever, but like when I go to work, and all my colleagues will probably agree with this, is that I'm so quiet, but very Scorpionic, you know. I go and I sit at my desk and I get obsessed with my work and I just do it and do it and do it, and I don't really talk to anybody. And then in my last job, I was in it for about 2 years. And before I left, you know, at the end of the 2 years, there's this, one of my colleagues came up and said, "Hey, are you a new teacher? Welcome, did you just arrive at the organization?" And I'm like, I've been here for 2 years, but you know, I don't really talk to people. But you know what Scorpio energy is like, right? People kind of just feel that there's something about you, so they come and talk to you about stuff, and that's what people do. Like my colleagues come up and get advice and things like that from me, but I'm like, yeah, I'm just a bit Scorpionic. And I do get into power struggles at work, you know, just had some fights with my boss and stuff, but because I kind of disagreed what they did, but I guess I shouldn't, it's not my place. Anyways, but in my last job, you know, Scorpio is an extreme planet, right? And it's very Martian Plutonian. And I like to try stuff out at work. So I used to be a teacher, so I would try different methods of teaching my students, right? And I do a lot of research. Scorpios love research and investigative, right? So I would investigate different techniques of teaching and stuff. And then I would run it through with my manager, and then he'd be like, "Are you really trying that out? That's very daring." He actually said the word daring. He says, "You are very daring to try out that teaching method." But it worked. And he was very like, you know, wow, like you should share this with your other colleagues, you know. Nobody thought that this technique would ever work. Nobody has ever tried it before, you know, and you did. You're very daring and it works. So that's how I can be a little bit like Scorpionic at work. Okay, so the last thing to just tell you guys before I finish off is because this house is ruled by Pluto, ruled by Scorpio, so I would see where Pluto is placed in my chart, and it's actually placed in my 5th house, right? So if you watch my 5th house videos, you'd kind of know what Pluto is doing over there in the 5th house. But so yeah, so because the 6th house is a house of service, you know, what I do tend to find is that, like, I had this one relationship, or maybe it happened several times, I'm not sure. But when I get into like romantic relationships with people, it becomes a place of service. Like I mentioned in my 5th house video, you know, the kind of domestic atmosphere that was going on was like me cleaning the house, me just cooking every meal, me just taking care of the person that I was with, that kind of stuff. I can be a bit obsessive when I have to be in a place of service, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I don't hope to have a job where I have to physically serve people, because I get obsessive with that, you know. Like if I'm with like old people and things like that, and when people are sick and stuff, like I feel highly responsible, highly my obligation to be there with them until they get better, and you know, that kind of energy. So that's why I kind of tend to avoid jobs, situations where I have to practically serve people. Anyways, that's my interpretation of the 6th house. As usual, please leave in the comments below planets and signs ruling your 6th house so we can learn together. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel by clicking the red subscribe button below if you haven't. If you've already subscribed, thank you very much for coming along with me on these astrology growth journeys, learning and growing together. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!